You've heard love stories before, between people, between species, even. But this one's different. It's not about romance the way you think of it. It's about a soldier left to die, and a being made of light born without a heart, raised without a name, created to be nothing more than a spiritual artifact. And yet, she loved. Not because someone told her how. Not because it was programmed into her. But because she chose to. And that choice changed everything. This isn't just a story about war, or survival, or running from a system that classifies feeling as a threat. It's about what happens when someone who was never supposed to exist decides to define herself. Her name was Lythea. And if you listen closely, you might just feel her heartbeat, too. Waking up on a battlefield is never graceful. You don't stretch, blink at the sky, and smile like you just had a good nap. No, you wake up because something hurts. Because something smells like ash and burnt circuitry. Because your mouth tastes like battery acid and your brain feels like someone poured sand through it and stirred. I woke up in the middle of the dead. The visor on my helmet was shattered. One eye could see part of the sky, gray, bruised, humming with post-combat static, while the other was crusted shut with blood. My comms link was fried. My left leg didn't move when I told it to, and my rifle, old reliable Caster 9, lovingly modified and marked with 26 battle etches, was nowhere to be found. I lay still for a long moment, just breathing. In out. Just to confirm I was still functional. Then I ran a shaky self-diagnostic the old-fashioned way: fingers, toes, pain levels, consciousness. 3 out of 4 passed. The pain was a 12 out of 10. Perfect. I forced myself upright with a groan that sounded less like a soldier and more like a busted fuel pipe. The crater around me was blackened with plasma scorch. Pieces of armor, mine, and not mine, were scattered like confetti at a very violent party. The only sound was the distant crackle of static in the clouds above. The battle was over. I had no idea who'd won. But judging from the lack of friendly faces and the absence of command drones, I was willing to bet it wasn't us. Rein Voss, Earth Ground Forces, Serial 79 Kappa 45, I muttered out loud. Just to remind myself I still existed. That I wasn't just a corpse who forgot to lie down. Then I checked for survivors. It was muscle memory, really. You crawl. You check. You call out once, never twice. Twice gets you shot if anyone's still jumpy. But there were no replies. Just bodies. Human. Not human. Burned out luminary husks that shimmered faintly even in death. I stopped when I saw her. She wasn't a body. She was standing. Which was weird, because no one was supposed to be standing. And she was glowing, which made it weirder. And also naked. Okay. Very weird. She looked like someone had shaped light into a woman, like a hologram forgot it wasn't real. Tall. Slender. Skin like transparent glass filled with liquid silver. Long white hair that floated as if underwater. Eyes too bright to make out irises. No visible armor, no visible weapons, no insignia. She shouldn't have been there. She shouldn't have been alive. And she definitely shouldn't have been walking toward me with her head tilted like a curious cat. I reached instinctively for a sidearm I didn't have. She didn't flinch. Just stopped 2 meters away and knelt. Her face tilted in closer. I should have felt threatened. I didn't. What I felt was warm. Not physically. Not externally. More like something deep inside had been touched by sunlight. You're broken, she said softly. Her voice wasn't spoken in any known tongue, but I understood it. Like it bypassed language and landed straight in my chest. I tried to talk. Failed. Tried again. I've been worse. She blinked, then smiled. It was the kind of smile you didn't get from military personnel or politicians or anyone who grew up on a post-collapse Earth colony. It was pure. Honest. Like someone seeing you, not your uniform. I don't understand, she said, still crouching. But I can fix it. I think. She reached toward me. I tried to flinch away, but the broken leg said no, and my pride was too busy bleeding out somewhere under my chest plate. Her fingers touched my temple. And I saw stars. Not metaphorically. I literally saw stars. Galaxies, nebulae, supernovae blooming in reverse. I saw myself as a string of wavelengths. My pain as color. My memories as fragile little lights. She was reading me, not with tech, but with something more ancient. Something organic. Something holy, if I believed in that, which I didn't, until that moment. When it ended, I was still me. Still Rein Voss. But I could breathe again. The pain didn't vanish, but it quieted. My head cleared. She sat beside me now, Cr. The first thing I noticed about her shelter was that it wasn't one. It wasn't a cave, or a bunker, or a repurposed escape pod cleverly disguised as terrain. It was just a grove of spiraling crystal trees, humming like wind chimes under an alien moon. No walls. No roof. Just curved branches that arched over the clearing like a half-finished cathedral made by a drunk architect with a color addiction. And that's where she lived. Safe, she said, spinning gently in the center of the clearing like she was dancing with gravity. This place doesn't hurt. I'd prefer something with doors, I muttered, limping in behind her. And, you know, maybe something between us and anything trying to eat my remaining leg. Nothing comes here, she replied, smiling. They don't like the resonance. Great. Resonance. Just what every tired soldier wants to bet his life on. Some good old-fashioned metaphysical vibes. She turned to look at me, her glowing hair catching the refracted moonlight like fireflies in slow motion. You're very loud when you're afraid. Lady, I'm always loud, I said. That's how I've survived this long. She stepped closer, and I didn't back away, partly because I was too tired, partly because I didn't want to. Her body radiated a low warmth, not like heat from a sun, but like memory. Like a song you forgot you loved until it played again. Do you want me to leave? She asked, but there was no accusation in her tone. Only curiosity. I exhaled slowly. I just want to know what you are. She blinked. You already said it. Luminary. No, I said that's what we call you. That's not the same as you telling me who you are. She tilted her head. I don't have what you have. I wasn't born from blood or bone. I don't eat. I don't sleep. My body is made of quantum harmonics stabilized in a containment lattice shaped like this. She gestured at herself. Sounds exhausting. It's not, she said. But confusing. Especially now. Because of me? Because of how I feel, near you? Okay, full stop. Most men would have run. But I was a battle-scarred Earth infantryman who once ate ration pudding made from cockroach protein in orbit around a gas giant. So instead of running, I did what any traumatized veteran would do. I sat down, rubbed my eyes, and said, "You're telling me you have emotions?" She nodded. But no heart? Another nod. That's biologically impossible. She touched her chest with an open palm. Her skin, if you could call it that, was translucent at the core, a pulsing lattice of threads and veins made of light, like someone wove her together with fiber optics and moonlight. I don't have a heart that pumps, she said. But I have a center. When I'm near you, it tightens. And when you hurt, it rings like glass. That's not possible, I muttered. But it's real, she whispered. We sat in silence for a moment. Her home pulsed gently around us. The crystal trees resonated faint musical notes I couldn't explain. They weren't just decorative, they were alive. Or at least responding to her. You didn't tell me your name, I said finally. I told you I don't have one. Then let me give you one. She looked surprised. Why? Because I can't keep calling you Glow Girl in my head. It's starting to feel disrespectful. She smiled again. That same unguarded smile from earlier. Like sunlight on frost. Fine. Then, what do you name me? I thought about it. I didn't want to name her something silly. This wasn't a pet. This was a being who saved my life, one who could have walked away, one who claimed to feel emotions without the anatomy to explain it. Lythea, I said finally. She blinked. What does it mean? Don't know, I replied. Made it up. But it feels right. And she smiled again. The next few days were strange. Strange because I wasn't dead. Stranger because Lythea treated that like it mattered. She didn't sleep, but she'd sit near me when I did, humming quietly. Not in sound, but in that frequency way, vibrations in my chest that helped the pain settle and the nightmares mute themselves. She didn't cook food, obvio. The rescue ship arrived 32 hours late. Which, in military terms, is practically on time. I heard it before I saw it. A low-frequency rumble that made the crystal trees vibrate like nervous tuning forks. I stood at the edge of the grove, back against one of the spiraling trunks, watching the atmosphere shimmer as the drop craft descended through the upper cloud layers like an angry god. A deep matte black hull with blue insignia, Earth Ground Forces Recon Class Seeker. Sleek, armored, fast, and designed to carry back things that shouldn't be left behind, namely soldiers, data cores, and the occasional alien artifact that could be exploited for profit or paranoia. It landed in a controlled storm of dust and static, deploying its boarding ramp like a hungry tongue. No words. No signals. Just the sharp smell of ionized air and the sense that something important was about to break. I didn't walk toward it. Instead, I waited. Because I wanted to see who they'd send. It was Captain Solon. Of course it was Solon. If you wanted someone to pull you out of hell and immediately ask what form you wanted to fill out about the experience, you sent Solon. He was everything you expected from upper-tier Earth Command, square shoulders, regulation buzz cut, eyes like frozen software. His uniform was so crisp you could have sliced tomatoes with the creases. He stopped halfway down the ramp and just stared at me. Not with relief. Not with concern. Just, analysis. Voss, he said finally. Captain. You're late for extraction. You're late for rescue. His mouth twitched. That was the Solon equivalent of a full-blown temper tantrum. Then he gestured me forward. Get aboard. Debrief is en route. I didn't move. I need to clarify something first, I said. He raised an eyebrow. This isn't a negotiation. Then consider it a field report. He didn't like that either, but he folded his arms and gave me the floor. So I told him. About the luminary who saved my life. About the crystalline grove. About the healing, the resonance, the lack of a heart and the presence of emotion. About how she didn't run. About how she left behind a part of herself, not out of fear, but trust. I left out the part where I named her. Or the part where I almost kissed her forehead while she slept sitting up, humming frequencies into my skull like lullabies made of light. When I was done, Solon was silent. The kind of silence that gets filled later with court-martials. You are aware, he said slowly, that luminary entities are classified as non-sentient bioenergy artifacts under Protocol 12. I'm aware that we made that classification, I replied, with no actual study. Just assumptions. They are dangerous. She saved me. They can manipulate neural fields, Voss. Embed suggestive resonance. Bend emotion. She didn't control me. She listened. He stepped down the last few feet, boots crunching in the grass like moss. He stood close. Not like a friend. Like a spreadsheet with arms. And you're sure this wasn't a post-trauma hallucination? I don't hallucinate in harmonics and telepathic frequencies. He considered that. Then, where is the entity now? I didn't answer. Where, Lieutenant? She's gone. Gone where? I don't know. He stepped back, nodding once. Then we'll locate her ourselves. That was when my stomach twisted. Not with fear. With anger. You're going to hunt her? We're going to collect her? She's not a specimen, Solon. She's not a citizen either. She's not a thing. He turned sharply. Voss, I don't know what it did to you, but you're not clear to assess threat levels or sentience designations. That's for ethics division and military xenopsych. She's a person, I said, louder now. More than some of the brass I've met. You are out of line. And you're out of humanity, I snapped. That earned me a full pause. And maybe, deep down, the smallest flicker of guilt in his artificial stare. Get on the ship, he said finally. Before I record this as insubordination. I didn't move. He pulled a data pad from his belt and tapped. I never thought I'd spend my post-battle recovery staring at a girl's chest, not like this, anyway. I wasn't being creepy. I was being curious. Because, to be absolutely clear, there was nothing in there. Where her heart should have been, center mass, between what passed for lungs in carbon-based life, there was a shimmering swirl of light. Not a glow. Not a pulse. Not some cute sci-fi core humming like a spaceship engine. It was something subtler. A spiral of silver-white energy twisting in slow, silent motion like a storm trapped in zero gravity. She let me see it. She pulled the front of her translucent exocloth down past her collarbone and said, "Look. I want you to." So I did. I sat on a patch of moss, 5 feet away, trying to wrap my war-trained brain around what it meant to stand that close to something alive that had no heartbeat and yet somehow had everything else. How does it even work? I asked, because science questions were safer than saying what I was really thinking, which was something like, "You're terrifyingly beautiful and I don't understand what's happening to me." Lythea sat across from me, her knees folded, her body relaxed in a way humans could never quite pull off. There was no guarded tension, no careful posture. Just existence. Honest and still. "It's resonance," she said. "Quantum echo harmonics. My body forms around it. That's how I know I'm still, me." "So that's your version of a heart?" "No," she said gently. "It's just what holds me in place. What you'd call a containment anchor." I nodded slowly. "And how do you feel emotions without, well, a limbic system?" She tilted her head at me, like I was a particularly slow child. "You think emotions come from meat?" I opened my mouth. Closed it. "That's not entirely unfair. You think love is chemical. That grief is synaptic. That memory lives in gray mush because your machines measure electric pulses. So when I say I feel, you think I'm lying. Or malfunctioning. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. Your aura changed." "My what?" She smiled. "Forget it." There was a silence then, the kind that doesn't weigh heavy so much as it stretches the moment. The kind where the world waits to see who flinches first. "Why do you care so much about what I think?" I asked. "Because you're the first person who stayed." I looked down. "You're the first person who made me want to." I wasn't always this introspective. But it turns out near-death experiences, glowing alien girls, and betrayal by your own command structure tend to stir something existential in a guy. I had a heart. A biological, muscular pump thrumming inside my chest like a worn-out engine. It beat harder when she looked at me, which I assumed was the human version of resonance, but with more awkward eye contact. But Lythea didn't have one. And somehow, she felt more than I ever did. She noticed things. Not just patterns or visual cues like a machine would. She understood nuance. When I lied about the pain in my leg, she didn't call me out. She just started humming a new tone under her breath and let her body shift closer to mine, just close enough that the warmth returned to my joints. That wasn't empathy born of programming. That was choice. She chose to care. And the question that began to haunt me wasn't how, it was why. Later that night, while I adjusted the makeshift satellite dish, which, fun fact, was mostly broken crystal antennae jammed into an old human COMM array and held together with hope, I asked her point blank. Why me? She didn't pretend not to understand. She didn't stall. You were broken, she said. But not empty? That's not much of a reason. It is to me. I sat down beside her. You could have let me die. You didn't know me. I might have killed you. You didn't. But I could have. I would have felt it before you moved. You're that confident. No, she said, and her voice dropped to a tone I hadn't heard before. I was that willing. Willing to die. Willing to feel something, even if it destroyed her. That's when I knew this wasn't just survival. There's a particular sound a human recon ship makes when it breaks atmosphere at full burn. It's not the roar of engines. That's for the sky. It's not the sonic boom. That's for the ego. It's the hum. The quiet, pressure-lock hum that makes your ears pop before your brain catches up. A whisper of high-frequency dread that says, you've been found. And whatever you were doing, it's over now. I'd heard that hum before. Usually from the inside of a cockpit, where it meant hold on, the ride's about to get interesting. This time, I was on the ground. On the run. Next to a girl with no heart and no name in the official databases. And the hum meant, they are coming for her. They found us, I said, flatly, like someone reading the last line of a bad novel they saw coming 3 chapters ago. Lythea nodded. I know. Because your quantum aura detected the subharmonic shift in the upper ionosphere? She looked at me. Because your hands just started shaking. I checked. She was right. Okay, I said, pulling my gear into a rough sling. No time for a pep talk. Or a breakdown. We need to move. Lythea, always infuriatingly serene, didn't react with urgency. She just closed her eyes for a second, sent out a soft wave of light from her chest like a ripple of silent static, and said, they are 2 clicks out. 3 soldiers. Standard recon armor. Plasma darts, kinetic suppressors, 1 atmospheric net. They are trying to take you alive. For now. That was all I needed to hear. We ran. Not dramatically. Not with music swelling and dirt flying. More like 2 people doing a bad job at being stealthy in a crystalline forest designed to light up when you so much as breathe. My boots crunched too loud. Her glow was impossible to hide. Even trying to dampen her luminance made the trees pulse in sympathetic waves. We weren't just leaving footprints. We were singing our location to the world. We need to split, I said between labored breaths. You go east, I go west. Draw them off. I'll meet you at the canyon ledge at sundown. She looked at me with those pale, starlit eyes. If I go alone, I won't come back. Then don't let them find you? That's not what I meant. I know, I said. Go anyway? She hesitated. Not because she didn't want to. Because she did. I'll find you, she said. I know, I whispered, even though I didn't. She vanished into the trees. I didn't make it half a click before they caught me. 3 soldiers in matte black recon gear, visors down, no insignia. That meant special retrieval. Which meant the ethics debate had already been filed and ignored. They didn't speak. The one in front raised a suppressor. I raised my hands. No sudden moves, I said. Or I drop something worse than plasma. Lieutenant Rein Voss, one of them barked, voice modulated. You are under review for breach of Protocol 12. Where is the artifact? You mean the person? The artifact? I sighed. Gone. Just like our morality. They didn't appreciate that. The suppressor fired. I dropped like a stone. Pain lanced through every joint, like my nervous system had been hit with a baseball bat made of static. They bound my wrists. Not gently. I saw one of them glance at my pack, then pause. Then he pulled out the crystal. Not her, not Lythea. Just a shard of resonance she'd left behind once, the one that still pulsed faintly like it remembered my name. Where did this come from? The soldier asked. It's a metaphor, I groaned. You wouldn't get it. He held it up to his visor. The moment it touched his armor, he staggered backward like he'd been hit with emotion he didn't have words for. I smiled. Yeah, she does that. They didn't like that either. They dragged me back to the drop shuttle. Everything smelled like ozone and antiseptic. I sat, cuffed to a restraint chair, watching the walls pulse with low security scans. They were trying to isolate the frequency signature on the crystal, but they couldn't. Not fully. It had a personality. It defied categorization. Just like her. Then, a voice came through the intercom. Lieutenant Voss. You never really appreciate how big space is until you're in a stolen shuttle with no functioning NAV system, limited fuel, and a glowing alien girl who thinks pilot training means touching every blinking button and waiting to see what happens. Please stop pressing things, I said for the 5th time. I'm just seeing what's edible, Lythea replied, her fingers hovering near the emergency coolant lever. That's not food. Neither was the root fungus you made me eat yesterday. That was survival. This might be too. Pull that, I said, and we survive right into a thermocoolant explosion. She pulled her hand back with a smile. Noted. So yeah. The escape had been the easy part. Now we were in that terrifying middle chapter of Space Fugitives where every beep from the console sounded like it might mean exploding in 5 seconds or being vaporized by an orbital patrol craft. And yet, somehow, we were okay. Mostly. We'd managed to burn into the gravity well of a tiny moon orbiting an abandoned research station. No life signs, minimal orbiting debris, and, most importantly, no Earth COMM traffic. It was off-grid, unimportant, and completely dead. In other words, perfect. We landed with a groan and a bounce. The kind of landing that makes you grateful for crash harnesses and reinforced tailbones. The station itself was mostly intact, except for the top dome, which had clearly lost a fight with something very large and very angry. I surveyed it from the hatch. Home sweet haunted shell. Lythea stood next to me, glowing faintly in the darkness. It's quiet here. Quiet is good. Quiet is lonely. I looked at her. Are you lonely? She didn't answer right away. I used to think I didn't understand the concept. But then you left. I didn't mean to. I know. But my body still registered absence. And you're what? Your emotional matrix? Your core. My self, she said softly. It reacted like it lost something vital. That hit harder than it should have. Well, I said, grabbing the last of our gear, then let's make this place ours. Even if it's only for a while. We spent the next few hours patching up the living quarter modules, rerouting power from a half-dead solar node, and pulling ancient ration packs from a wall storage bay that smelled like expired glue. Lythea tried one, chewed it thoughtfully, and declared it texturally unforgivable. I tried not to laugh with a mouthful of dust-flavored protein brick. Later, we set up a safe space in the observation chamber, a wide circular room with a shattered viewport facing the ring gas giant the moon orbited. The broken glass had been sealed over with radiation shield gel, so the view was safe, if a little fuzzy. We sat side by side on the cold floor. Neither of us spoke for a while. You could have left me, I said eventually. Back on the planet. On the shuttle. At any point. I didn't want to. But you could have. She nodded. Then why stay? She turned to face me, and for the first time, I noticed how her glow pulsed in sync with my breathing. I wanted to know, she said, if someone could choose me even when they had nothing to gain. You think that's what this is? A test? No, she said. A hope. Sleep was a strange thing between us. She didn't sleep at all. Not by any human definition. But she rested, her body dimmed, her patterns slowed, and she entered a kind of suspended awareness, like she was half there, half dreaming. I, on the other hand, passed out like someone had unplugged my brain. When I woke, she was sitting cross-legged near the viewport, humming quietly. It wasn't a tune. Just a frequency that made the shattered glass vibrate in soft harmony. You're up, she said without turning. How long was I out? 7 hours, 14 minutes. Sleep tracking. Creepy, but appreciated. I missed the sound of your breath. That stopped me cold. You missed it. Yes. It's anchoring. I sat beside her again. You keep saying things I don't know how to respond to. You don't have to respond. You just have to be. See, that's another one. That's the K. Somewhere around the 5th day in our stolen moon base paradise, the silence broke. It wasn't dramatic. No alarms. No tremors. No booming villain monologue piped in over the station speakers. It started with a flicker. Just a little one. A stutter in the station's motion sensors. A blink in the light field. Then came the frequency spike, barely perceptible to me, but Lythea flinched like someone had snapped a rubber band through her skull. They found us, she said, standing instantly. I dropped my ration spoon. You sure? They pinged the old containment signal. One of the logs we opened must have flagged central systems. Meaning what, exactly? Meaning they don't know where we are yet, she said, her glow now a cold white. But they know we're somewhere. Great. Because nothing says romantic hideaway like imminent invasion by a kill team with no moral compass and an itchy trigger finger. We moved quickly. There was no panic. Just that focused kind of dread that turns into action. We'd been preparing for this. Of course we had. Because hope is great and all, but prepping your escape vectors is just good hygiene. Lythea reconfigured the resonance scrambler I'd cobbled together out of old navigational gyros and melted COMM units. She enhanced it with her own output, something she called phase interference bloom, which sounded lovely but basically boiled down to her broadcasting noise through the station's infrastructure like an angry ghost with a subwoofer. I handled the weapons. Or, more precisely, the lack thereof. This was a research station, not a bunker. The best we had were cutting lasers, emergency shielding, and one very cranky maintenance bot with a taser arm. I named him Kevin. Kevin beeped once in passive-aggressive binary and went back to scrubbing the floor like he resented us for interrupting his vacuuming routine. By nightfall, or what passed for nightfall on a moon with artificial cycles, we were sitting in the observatory again, waiting for the inevitable. What happens if they come? I asked. They will, she said calmly. You know what I mean. She turned to me. Then we show them that light doesn't mean weakness. Her glow intensified. Not in brightness, in weight. The entire chamber felt heavier, like the photons around her were pressing against the edges of their own reality. It wasn't anger. It wasn't violence. It was presence. You don't have to fight, I said. We can run. Again. It worked before. She shook her head. Running meant leaving a piece of myself behind. If I keep running, there won't be any of me left. I reached for her hand. Just don't burn yourself out trying to prove you're real. She smiled sadly. I'm not trying to prove it to them. Then who? She looked at me. Myself. The first wave came 12 hours later. Not soldiers. Drones? 3 of them. Stealth black. Energy silent. Riding low magnetic rails just beneath the station's surface, scanning for resonance output. One found us. We knew, because it exploded. Not by our hand. By hers. We were in the lab module rerouting power when the lights flared, the floor trembled, and a low tone shuddered through every wall like someone humming through a thunderclap. I looked up in time to see Lythea standing still, both arms outstretched, glowing so brightly that her outline had blurred at the edges. "Was that you?" I asked. She blinked. Her voice was smaller than I expected. It tried to override my frequency field. I responded. "What did you do?" I told it to leave. With an EMP burst. "No," she said. I told it no. It didn't listen. It was the calmest way I'd ever heard someone describe mutual annihilation. We knew that wouldn't be the end of it. Command never sent only drones. They were always the scouts. The bait. The test. The second wave would be people. Armed. Ready. And pissed. We had ours. Maybe. So we did what all great fugitives do when faced with inevitable capture. We made it very hard for them. Lythea embedded resonance traps throughout the station, pulses that would echo through the corridors like phantom here. Most people assume memory is a strictly biological process. Chemical storage. Synaptic encoding. Flashy words we invented to make ourselves feel smart about forgetting where we left the remote 5 minutes ago. But Lythea didn't have a brain. Not in a traditional meat and goop way. Which is why it was so terrifying and miraculous when she began remembering things she wasn't supposed to. It started the morning after the soldiers left. I found her on the edge of the observatory platform, curled into herself, no glow at all, staring at nothing. That was unusual. Because Lythea never stared. She observed. With attention. With intention. This was different. "Hey," I said, walking over carefully. "What's going on?" She looked up. Her eyes shimmered, not brightly, not like a glow, but like a reflection from something deep inside that hadn't existed yesterday. "I had a dream," she said. "Okay. Plot twist." "You don't sleep," I said. "I didn't," she replied. "Not until now." "And you're saying you dreamed?" She nodded. "And not just floated in metaphysical resonance mode or whatever it is you call power saving." She gave me a look that I'm pretty sure translated to "Are you always this annoying?" "It was a memory," she said. "But not mine." I blinked. "Okay. That's new." She turned back to the viewport. "You were there." That made my stomach flip in a way I did not approve of. "Me. You were standing in a rainstorm. Gray sky. Wet clothes. Angry." That was uncomfortably specific. "Describe it," I said quietly. "You were yelling into a COMM link." No one answered. There was static. "You dropped the link. Then you looked up and said, 'Screw it, then. I'm done.'" I sat down beside her. Because I remembered that day. 6 years ago. A botched extraction on Huron Delta 4. The squad never showed. I waited for 12 hours in the rain, alone, trying to call in. When I finally gave up, I screamed into the sky and told the galaxy to go screw itself. No one else knew that. No one could have known that. "I think," she said slowly, "I pulled it from you." She didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, she just leaned into me, her head on my shoulder, her body flickering with unstable pulses. Her containment lattice was stressed. That much was clear. "You're evolving," I said. "That's what scares me." "It shouldn't. I'm not made for this." "Says who?" She didn't answer. And I got it. I really did. This wasn't just about feeling anymore. This was about memory. And if there's one thing more dangerous than emotion, it's memory. Because memories change you. They remind you of who you were. Or show you who you'll never be again. You're not alone, I said softly. She smiled without looking up. That's your memory, too. Which one? The moment you said that to someone. I think it was your sister. I closed my eyes. She was right again. Over the next few days, it got worse. Or better. Depends on how you define cognitive existential transformation. Lythea began experiencing what she called phantom thoughts. Flash images. Emotions she hadn't generated. Voices that weren't hers but felt like echoes in her chest. They weren't intrusive. They weren't overwhelming. They were familiar. My body isn't just a vessel, she said one night as we watched the rings of the gas giant spin slowly overhead. It's an antenna? For what? For you. Me specifically. She turned. Humans. You're receiving, what, a cultural broadcast. Something like that. Impressions. Experiences. You leak them. All the time. Like heat. Charming. It's beautiful. Then why do you look like you're about to break in half? Because it's too much. I leaned closer. You want me to shut it off? She smiled sadly. No, I want to learn how to carry it. We build a memory chamber. Okay, that's dramatic. What we really did was clear out an old medical bay, install visual projection panels, and connect it to Lythea's resonance field via a rewired emotional scanner rig we'd found buried under a pile of outdated painkillers. I wore a biometric cuff. She stood in the center of the room. And when we didn't send a signal. That was the worst part. We'd made it almost 2 weeks without incident. The station was running better than it had in decades. The observation deck didn't leak. The food cubes stopped smelling like burnt algae. Lythea had even managed to stabilize her resonance field to the point that she could make the lights dance in whatever color she felt like. Yes, she made them pink once. No, I don't want to talk about it. We were happy. Or at least, something close to happy. That dangerous kind of peaceful where you start thinking, maybe they've forgotten about us. And then the signal arrived. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. It was a whisper on a dormant channel, buried under layers of station maintenance code, something only an AI could find, or a girl with no heart but a very curious sense of pattern recognition. I was brushing my teeth with what passed for mint paste in the apocalypse when I heard her say it. Rein. Not panicked. Just, still. That was worse. I walked into the control room. She was standing in front of the main console, hands folded. Her glow had dimmed to a hard, pale shimmer. The color she used when something was about to go very, very wrong. What is it? I asked. She pointed at the monitor. It read, Automated Recall Protocol Initiated Response Asset, Olympus Core EDA, 46 hours. I stared at it. What the hell is Olympus Core? She didn't turn. It's not a ship. It's not a drone. Then what is it? It's them. She explained it the way only someone built of starlight and trauma could. Olympus Core wasn't a retrieval unit. It was a proof of concept. A living directive. A mobile facility built around a logic core designed to house and neutralize unpredictable resonance entities, meaning her. It didn't ask questions. It didn't take prisoners. It recorded everything. And when it finished its evaluation, it decided what was safe to keep. And what wasn't. They are sending it for me, she said. Then we stop it, I replied. You can't. I've got lasers. They won't work. I've got Kevin the cleaning bot. She looked at me. Rein. Okay, yeah, we're probably dead. But we didn't run. We'd already done that. Instead, We did what two people who had no plan, no reinforcements, and no legitimate qualifications did. We prepared. We mapped the station. We isolated nodes. We crafted signal feedback loops. Lythea overcharged the old containment systems to act as pulse shockers, non-lethal, but enough to destabilize anything that relied on digital balance. I rewired Kevin to scream. I told you this would happen every time someone entered the airlock. He was thrilled. Lythea, in the meantime, had grown quieter. Not distant. Just focused. This is the part where I lose myself, she said one night, lying beside me on the floor of the observation dome. You don't know that, I said. It's what they are built to do. Disassemble resonance. Reorder emotion into patterns that fit their models. So don't let them. If they touch me, it starts. Then they don't touch you? She looked at me. No glow. No metaphor. Just Lythea. You can't protect me from what I am. I reached for her hand. I'm not protecting you from you, I said. I'm protecting you from them. 34 hours before impact, we received the full data packet. Encrypted. Compressed. But Lythea peeled it open with ease. A manifest. A psychological profile. A list of acceptable outcomes. They'd already decided what she was. Unstable artifact, category L9 conditional termination approved emotional contamination, high recommended status, nullification that last word. Nullification. Such a clean way to say erase her from existence. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. I saw her light dim. Her breath hitch. And then she said the 5 words that would end the quiet part of our lives forever. I want to be remembered. We built a beacon. Not the kind they would expect. Not a trap. Not a distress call. A story. Lythea wrote it with her body, literal data woven from resonance pulses into a thread of emotional history. Our conversat. She stepped out of the airlock like she belonged to the world. Not to me. Not to Earth. Not to any damn protocol. Just herself. No weapons. No armor. Just light. Clear and brilliant, shaped like a girl who once asked if she had a soul. I wanted to run after her. Tackle her. Stop her from walking toward the thing that had come to end her. But I didn't. Because she'd made a choice. And it wasn't mine to take away. Olympus core loomed ahead, a monstrous thing squatting on the cracked surface like an ancient insect that traded its soul for an upgrade. It didn't move. It didn't speak. It registered her presence, her pulse, her light. And responded. From its side, a panel slid open. Not like a hatch, more like a pupil dilating. A stare unfolded, almost ceremonial. The kind of invitation a god gives before deciding whether to consume you or not. Lythea took it. Step by step. Glowing. Proud. Beautiful. Inside Olympus core, there were no walls. Just silence. She later told me it was like standing in a room made of thought. Every surface reflected possibility. Memories tried to echo around her but found nothing familiar to cling to. And then, the voice. Not human. Not alien. Just calculation. Entity Lythea. Unregistered resonance form. She didn't speak. Emotional core detected. Instability high. Still, she said nothing. Engaging nullification sequence. And that's when she finally opened her mouth. I'm not a glitch in your system. There was a pause. Not confusion. Just recalibration. Statement not recognized. You can't define me. Because I wasn't made for your model. You are undocumented. Emotion is unstable data. No, she said. Emotion is the proof that your data is incomplete. Explain. She took one more step forward. Once, I didn't have a name. I didn't know what it meant to be afraid. Or happy. or anything. Neutral. Then I met someone who didn't treat me like a signal. She lifted her hand. Let it pulse. And in that moment, a memory unfolded. Not a projection. Not a file. A feeling. Of laughter in a broken station. Of tears without pain. Of choosing to stay when it was easier to leave. Of love, fierce and fragile and real. The core pulsed red. Conflicting input. Contamination detected. I'm not the contamination, she said. I'm the cure. Outside, I watched the sky darken. The station groaned. The power grid trembled under the resonance load. Kevin the cleaning bot screamed "Oh no" in 3 languages and rebooted himself. I stood in the control chamber, watching the beacon's pulse accelerate. If Olympus Core destroyed her, it would also absorb her. That's how it worked. It didn't just erase. It recorded. Compiled. Turned individuality into data points. And that's why we'd embedded the pulse. A backdoor. A payload. If they took her, they'd feel her. And maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. Inside the core, Lythea was dying. She didn't fight it. Not with blasts or resistance. She let them see her. Every fragile thought. Every imperfect echo. Every joy. She bared it all. And the core couldn't contain it. Error. Error. Structure unstable. Her body shimmered. She felt herself unraveling. Light warping. The lattice fracturing. But she didn't stop. Because the last thing she said wasn't for Olympus Core. It was for me. Rein, thank you, for letting me be real. And then she exploded. Not in violence. In memory. The core went silent. Its lights flickered. It didn't collapse. It just sat. Motionless. No retrieval signal. No override ping. Just a monument to something it couldn't process. Inside it, her memory lived now. Not as a file. As resonance. A frequency without a name but with a shape. A tone that infected systems not with chaos, but with empathy. She changed it. Because she didn't die angry. She died known. The beacon triggered. I watched the pulse go out, rippling through the COMM bands like a whisper you couldn't unhear. I added 1 line to the data feed. A name. Her name was Lythea. Earth didn't react immediately. Bureaucracies don't. They analyzed. Debated. Sent quiet probes to Olympus COR.